Mark Stoops is taking baby steps at Kentucky, so based on his progress, I estimate that he's going to win the SEC championship in year number 47. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the SEC team by team. We've made our way through the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, and we have delivered our predictions. We ask you for your predictions. Leave them in the comments section for each video. All right, Stoops went 2-10 his first season in Kentucky. We know the challenges of winning in Lexington in football. Then 5-7, 5-7, couldn't get to postseason play, lost late games in the season, usually to Louisville, to knock himself and knock the team out of postseason play. Then finally got to a bowl game at 7-5 2 years ago, got trampled by Georgia Tech. Last year at 7-5, lost another bowl game to Northwestern that was highly controversial. They played good against a top 20 team. Okay, so that's progress. You can see it. It's small progress, but it's progress. And now it's going to become more difficult because it's one thing to go from, let's say, 2-6 in the SEC to 4-4 because you're adding wins against, let's say, Missouri and South Carolina or the like teams, the like opponents on your level. To go from 4-4 in the SEC to 6-2 or 7-1 in the SEC, then you got to do something. All right. And they're going to have to do it in 2018 with no experience at quarterback. Steven Johnson gone. Drew Barker quit. Of course, he was the prized recruit from a few seasons ago. All right, it's a bit of a secret right now who's going to win the job. Many believe it's going to be the sophomore Gunnar Hoke, the 40th rated pro-style quarterback coming out in 2016 out of Dublin, Ohio. Ohio being a fertile recruiting ground for Mark Stoops. He's gone into Ohio, West Virginia, and plucked a lot of talent, especially out of the Buckeye State, from underneath Urban Meyer and James Franklin and so forth. Terry Wilson, a JUCO quarterback, maybe he wins the job. He was a third-rated dual-threat quarterback coming out of high school. Then you've got Danny Clark, a redshirt freshman, 15th-rated pro-style quarterback out of the famed Massillon, Ohio, of Chris Spielman and Paul Brown. All right, the running game's really going to have to support the quarterback play, and the running game is Benny Snell. 2 years... For 2 years, he has been the man. 1,333 yards rushing last season, 19 touchdowns, and that even includes being ejected for that ridiculous move that he made. Nothing that he did wrong, but the ridiculous call in response to just the end of a play and getting up and trying to help an official. You've probably seen it. Anyway, it's a new season, and we move on from that. But the stats would have been better even for that than Benny Snell was able to compile, and maybe Kentucky would have beaten Northwestern. They lost by 1 point without their best player. All right, the offensive line with 5 starters with at least 7 starts coming back. That's a good sign. You've got a 4-star in Landon Young and Drake Jackson in the mix, offensive lineman. 4-star USC transfer E.J. Price. So if he was able to make the 4-star cut and go and be signed by the Trojans, that's a good sign as well. More 4 stars also in the mix and on the depth chart at the offensive line spot. So the offensive line in the running game, as long as Benny Snell stays healthy, and even if he doesn't, with that type of depth and talent along the offensive front, they should be able to move the ball on the ground, except if people load up on the box, because none of these quarterbacks can deliver the ball downfield. Okay, a wide receiver, they're inexperienced, inconsistent, and the guys that have played in the past, unproductive. Junior Taven Richardson caught 27 passes for 1 touchdown. Dorian Baker, out for the 2017 season, goes into a senior campaign coming off 14 receptions and 2 scores in 2016. We've got another 4-star and sophomore Lynn Bowden, who caught 17 balls for 210. And your tight end is C.J. Conrad. Although he has not been a big factor in the offense, he's most likely will win the job. He did catch 4 touchdown passes last year on 16 receptions. All right, the defense has underachieved. It should be better. They have had playmakers on that side of the ball like Bud Dupree and still on the team, Mark Edwards at safety, one of the very best, Mike Edwards in particular, I should say. 97th overall in the S&P Plus last year. Very disappointing showing. Their best players on each level, defensive end Joshua Patchell. Look out for him. Linebacker Josh Allen. Linebacker Boogie Watson. All right. At defensive back, you've got corner Derek Beatty. He had 2 interceptions and 49 tackles. Lonnie Johnson chipped in with 41 stops, and Chris Westry with 34 tackles. Mike Edwards, we talked about him, one of the very best in the SEC. And the defensive backs across the board are really good and experienced and productive. 96 tackles for Edwards and 4 picks. Darius West had 85 tackles. Too many defensive backs making tackles. 96, 85, 41, 49, 34. It's a lot of tackles out of the secondary at Kentucky, which may explain the 97th ranking in the country in S&P Plus defense. They had excellent special teams in 2017, but the punter and place kicker are gone, and that's usually the biggest impact on the special teams because the rest of it's typically coaching more so than in the punting and place kicking, specifically those roles or positions. But the coverage units, the return, the protection for the punter and so forth, yes, coaching. All right, let's get to the schedule for the Wildcats, and let's see how they may shake out here in 2018. At Louisville, that's their only non-conference Power 5 game. Kentucky falling into the Iowa State mode of not scheduling anybody else in the Power 5, just their natural out-of-conference rival, and that's Louisville at the end of the season. I believe they're going to lose that game. They've got to travel to Louisville. Louisville's somewhat better at this point. 3-1 out of conference. All right. In the West, they've got to meet Mississippi State and Texas A&M. Not good for the Wildcats. Sure, they avoid Auburn, Alabama, LSU, but Mississippi State, Texas A&M will be highly favored in those games. All right, they're losing to Georgia and South Carolina. They're going to lose other games. So what I'm seeing here is that basically I'm giving Kentucky 2 losses against Georgia, South Carolina. Then 2 losses against Mississippi State and Texas A&M. Then they're going to lose to somebody else, whether that's Missouri, Tennessee, somebody else in the SEC Eastern Division is going to knock them off. So after baby steps of progress, maybe a step back record-wise for Kentucky with a new quarterback in play. But if he plays well, whether it's Gunnar Hoke or Terry Wilson, I think that's the guy most Kentucky fans would like to see win the job. And the wild card is Danny Clark, but he's just a redshirt freshman. As long as they play well and they show signs, despite maybe a step back in record, Kentucky fans should be feeling good about 2018. Get back to postseason play at 6-6, 3-5 in the SEC, and get set for 2019 with an experienced quarterback leading the charge. My thoughts on Kentucky football, my prediction as we march our way through the SEC Eastern Division. Please leave your Kentucky record in the comments section and sign up for the newsletter that's going to be delivered each Monday of the college football season. Just leave your email at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Just give me your email address. I'm not going to abuse it. I'm not going to fill up your inbox with garbage email. It's going to be one newsletter per week with stats, trends, and facts that you won't find anywhere else in one location. Also, my channel update and my perspective and take on the college football weekend every Monday. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.